This is the Werewolf channel. Please subscribe. You can win a PlayStation 5 on the 20th of October when it's drawn from all my subscribers. My name is Will. I'm a werewolf. A real fucking werewolf. I'm gonna tell you about my life. This is kind of my autobiography. I'm going to tell you how it really is. Please listen. We are out there. We are better than you. And that's when I fucked up. Well, even I could fuck up sometimes and get caught. I got a little overconfident about my safety and my ability to deal with my situation that arose. I'd first arrived in Kosovo in 1998. It was the late summertime, and at this time I started enjoying myself among the craziness of the warring fronts in this shithole. It was a time of lovely weather, long sunny days and mass murders. Murders of a people, by a people, of whom not so long ago were friends of the other people, but as we all know, people will be people, and that was the unravelling of it all. The nights were warm and filled with the relaxing tones of staccato gunfire, the remote shell firework bursts of ordnance, and the majestic hits, such as the Band 5's contemporary masterpiece When the Lights Go Out, being dropped without discrimination on the screaming innocence of this country. I was sat delightfully in the middle of some real high-level war crime shite, with some proper levels of persecution, ethnic cleansing, and destruction of whole settlements thrown in, for pleasure. I think to this day, this was the preempt for Ricky Martin's most outstanding work in the following year, Living La Vida Loca. This musical genius cementing this man as history's best musician. I mean, who could believe this genre-bending epic could surpass La Copa de la Vida, the favourite ever official Soccer World Cup anthem? Yes, and I dare call it soccer. And what the fuck are you going to do about it? Come on, if you think you're fucking hard enough, being my immediate response to any of your quibbles. This place and period were the perfect horror-filled playground for an undercover werewolf to ply his trade. It was a lovely time and place to do the things that can get lost in reality of the situation. I could do the nasty and obnoxious and not really get noticed, as horror and horrendousness was going on all around me already. I was a little locus of nastiness in a country of crapola. I was not really on the side of any of the forces doing the fighting. I was not really choosing my victims with any consideration of race or religion. I was enjoying the energy and anarchy of joining in where and when I could. I was revelling in the killing, maiming and murdering and torture. It's always great fun being a werewolf in a war zone, especially where the people killing each other look the same as each other, and also look like me in my human form. At this point, my gentle friends, are you ready to depart on a pointless sojourn to take an irrelevant departure from our story? During the Second World War and during a particularly rough time in the trenches, the Germans and the Allies called a halt to the fight at one point to destroy two local wolf packs that had been systematically attacking the soldiers in their holes. Maybe I would single-handedly bring about reconciliation. Maybe the opposing sides would somehow come together in order to destroy me. Probably not though, to be brutally honest. On top of all the chaos in the country itself, the borders surrounding the conflict and the surrounding countries that were dealing with massive movements of refugees. And there was also the pointless World Cup thing going on not so far away, meaning millions were travelling around Europe and its surrounding countries. What did this mean for me? Well, it meant that what they laughingly called border security was often in a rush and thoroughly overwhelmed. Fucking perfect for this canine, because getting in and out of this country was so fucking easy. So I could come and go as much as I want. Edwin Starr's classic soul song would replace some of the sublime lyrics with those like this. War, huh? What is it good for werewolves who like hunting? Basically what was happening in Kosovo was there was this dude called Slobodan Milosevic. He, for some reason, wanted to kill off Albanians, and he tended to do it in the most nastiest way that he could. The war crimes had certainly stacked up against him, and his respective forces were doing things pretty horrifically. He was extremely good at them, war crimes that is, and extremely quick at implementing a final solution. I had very little to do with the percentages killed, to be completely honest. The Serbian army and the Serbian police were very good at kidnapping, torturing and killing people, and I got nowhere near their numbers. Although, I've got to admit, I tried damn hard. When you're on your own and your only real weapons are you, I don't like guns and knives and stuff. I have my weapons built in. You really can't compete with large numbers of people with modern weaponry. Claws and teeth just don't cut it. Get it? Cut it. See what I did there? If you see what some of these modern machine guns can do to a crowd of people, you would realise that I would take ages to shred the bodies as good as they do. These guns were often employed in killing rooms. They would place a large number of people in a tiny room and then either toss grenades into it or turn many machine guns on them. This would leave tiny fragments of bone and gristle in a thin carpet on the floor as a byproduct. In one horrible case, they just burned the building down around the people. That takes a lot of effort though. So I can see for economy's sake why they don't do that often. Still, can you imagine burning people? It does have a certain artistic quality. The sounds of the roaring flames and the screaming humans combined with the smells of roasting flesh, that would be unforgettable. It would be sad not to be able to see what is going on inside that room though. Can you imagine? I accidentally got linked into an alleged Operation Horseshoe that would see forces go into villages and towns and then drive the Albanian population from them. Well, either that and or just killing them with enjoyable massacres. This moment was the point in which the European peacekeepers left the country, and then NATO started bombing the fuck out of the people in general. The Serbian forces were able to blame the refugee crisis and the subsequent massacres on the actions of NATO and vice versa. It was a veritable shitstorm of a situation, and it was fucking thrilling. I often entered towns and villages that were deserted and devoid of life. Many of the buildings were destroyed. Do you know what? Especially mosques. The Serbian forces had a real ball ache against mosques. So sometimes it would be difficult to find people who I could, sort of interact with. In 1999, multiple massacres occurred in Kosovo. I have to put my paws up and say that I was in there and I was having the best fun. Killing and mauling the people on both sides and getting lost in the craziness that comes with war. I found true joy wandering into and out of some of the craziest situations that anyone could. Anyways, back to the first sentence. That's when I fucked up. Well, it seems that sometimes you get spotted, and after one particularly nasty affair in a small village, I was having a relaxing evening in someone's beautiful home. It was a shame that they were not so lovely anymore. They'd all been well. They'd been my lovely breakfast. I was not paying much attention to the world around me. When I'm in amongst all that chaos, I don't have to worry about anything going on, really. Well, usually. You see, I'm pretty much fucking immortal, and in a way a bit unkillable, so sometimes I take that shit for granted. I sensed that there were people around me, but I could smell and feel the fear, so I knew that they were out there, but made the assumption that they would not be silly enough to take me on or anything, especially after what I'd done in the village that night. My posit Fenrir had been outside, and he wandered back in through the wall. You might be wondering what a posit is. The posit is the werewolf part of me. He is the wolfy bit of me. Like a ghost that only I can see, and then I can absorb him into me, and then I become a werewolf. It'll make more sense as we go along. Posits do that ghost stuff, shit of walking through walls. On his way back in, he came and sat by me. I sat drinking a nice glass of sparkling wine and ate some remains of that family. Life was pretty damn good. Then everything happened very fast. I have super quick reactions, so normally I'm never surprised by simple humans. But the world went black, and in the next moment, I woke up in a box. It was a box-shaped cell, and oh, what a cell. This thing was reinforced and steel barred, and it had all the trimmings. I was not even locked in, I was fucking welded in. It was a cube-shaped box, about 1.5 metres by 1.5 metres by, guess what, 1.5 metres, and it sat dead centre in the middle of a much larger room. The floor of the box and the ceiling was thick steel plate, and whoever made it knew they were going to have to deal with something that was pretty fucking powerful and pretty crafty. The whole thing was, well, it was werewolf proof, or at least it looked that way. They'd surrounded the cage with 4 outlets, on the end of which were gas pipes labelled gas, just in case I could not tell. They had pilot lights lit beneath them, and they looked like scary stuff. At this point, I realised that whoever had me knew who or what I was. They thought that even werewolves would burn. Although it would take a lot of burning to kill me, I probably would not die, but it would be a lot of pain and I would not enjoy it. Being burnt is definitely beyond my personal fetishes. As varied as they are, burning is scary. It is not the most pleasant of experiences for anyone. It really spoils your day. Your pelt takes a long time to go back to its usual lusciousness after it. So I was acutely aware that I should behave and not fuck about in the slightest. The room that the cage was in was well lit and looked like the interior of a big fuck-off warehouse building. The ceiling was high and a few metres up the wall, and well out of reach was a balcony that overlooked the room with a single metal doorway that led onto it. Below that door and coming into the room at floor level was another steel door. It looked like an airlock from a Second World War movie. You know, the ones with submarines and stuff. It was sealed from outside and was obviously built to last. Above it was a red light that shone like the very eye of Sauron. All I could hear was the buzzing of phosphorescent lights in the ceiling. I usually could sense outside the limits of this room, but the walls must have been thick and very solid, as I could not sense anything from outside. All I could sense was the buzz and the ticks of the lights in it. I was naked and had a nylon blanket and a plastic bucket in the cage with me. That was it. At first I admit I was somewhat perturbed, but I quickly realised that I was in deep shit, and I looked at my posit who lay outside the enclosure on his belly. His huge wolf head was between his feet, his eyes closed. I could see he was a little bit miffed and bored with the situation already. So I had to ask, okay, what happened? I didn't ask him out loud. You don't talk to posits out loud, it's like through your head, it's a telepathy thing. You know, like mind links and stuff. He wearily lifted his head and gave a brief look around the room before regarding me with a knowing look and starting his story. Here we go. We were sat there enjoying our evening when some set of devices that was planted in the house exploded. You were blown out your chair by the blast, and I think it knocked you unconscious or something. A wee bit of concussion, I think. Then there was a smell, and it entered the room. You stirred a little on the floor, and it kind of enveloped you, and you lay still. Then many humans came in wearing them funny mask things with big pots on front. Like those, do you know those gas mask things we saw in the wars? I think the masks were for breathing of the gas safely, and they had like these long guns and a fire tip pipe thing, a bit like those. He motioned to the gas pipes. They very carefully tested you for being awake and stuck needles in you and pushed liquids in you. 2 of them had carried you in a big van. It's surrounded by a lot of nervous people. It was semi-amusing as they carried you. You know, they thought you were going to explode or something. I kept expecting and thinking you may sit up and surprise them all, but you didn't. You displayed some exasperation. I followed you and climbed in the back of the truck with you. I could sense that you were not dead, but only a little bit alive. Not sleeping, but like something else. The soldiers put pipes from bags down to your arms and had many straps that held you down on a metal plank. It was like a metal plank thing they could carry. The van was one part of a big load of cars, and vans. There were many soldiers, I mean lots of them, and I think they all got into vehicles and followed the van or something. The fucking men were terrified of you. I mean, they were right on the edge of being able to keep it together. They knew that you were, capable of doing some shit. I only came because I wanted to see what would happen when you woke up. I thought it might be fun when you killed them all. I look forward to seeing those bags of fear freak out when you did your thing, and started your death doing things. It would have been so cool to see. The journey was really long, and I tried to get you to wake up, but you would not. I even tried to force my way in to change you, but your body was not having none of it. You were not dead, but just I don't know, just asleep. I didn't get it. We then came into this town through massive gates in a fence, and finally this big concrete building place is where we stopped. When they carried you in and they stuck you in this box and closed it, and the Guy used like hot metal. I think you're very stuck. I can't leave this room for some reason either. There's like a barrier in the wall thing. I don't know what it is. It tastes like some form of buzzing thing. I don't have any clue. Maybe it's that electricity thing or something. We're trapped in here pretty good. This building is big and it's one of many on the outside. There's many humans walking about. They're all in uniforms and everything with guns. I saw them all. It's going to be really interesting to see how you get the fuck out of this. His words had fallen into my head, and he punctuated the story with a snarly laugh. I think we're in trouble now. Well, I'm alright, but you're fucked. I smiled. I knew I'd find a way to get out of it. They were going to regret this nonsense. There was going to be a lot of dead things created to stop me feeling this fucking humiliated. I smiled and I promised my posit and myself that there was going to be a lot of horrific experiences for those that had trapped me. But I also realised whoever took me knew me for what I was. That was a bit nerve-wracking. It would be a first for me. To face people who actually realise that I am a monster. An actual monster. When those people have the power, they'll have the power balance. They did seem like overly prepared for me. Well, something would go wrong. For them. The hours passed slowly. I could smell and sense the people outside the room now, mostly men. But there was a hint of a menstruating woman. A little hint of blood. At the worst of times is always, a good thing. Surrounding the building were a lot of people. My ego was a little bit appeased as I realised that the entire focus of all those around me was in fact me. I could smell and feel the fear of those that were closer to me. The men who sat outside the door were very nervous. I noted the placement of the CCTV cameras and realised I was being watched very closely. They would be studying me in depth. This was a serious problem. What could I get away with? Could I do anything that would be unseen? On the other hand, they had stroked my ego with all the attention given to me. I was pleased with the detail and the lengths to which they had worked. Oh, and the number of people they had employed to deal with me was pretty exciting. Who knew how long I waited, but eventually after what felt like days, the light above the door went green, and it opened with air slowly being expelled from inside to outside. Interesting that, innit? They were keeping me in a positive pressure room. I still wonder why that was. In came two soldiers wearing non-discernible khakis and no nomenclature on their uniforms. They turned and stood one on each side of the door. Each of them had a machine gun in their arms and each was really sweaty. I could sense their raised heartbeats. Neither of them made eye contact with me, and I could tell that the cortisone and adrenaline were flowing through their veins. They were not trying to stand for attention, but due to the muscle tension that racked their bodies, they appeared to be. Both sets of eyes were glued at points on the other side of the room, and they would not allow themselves to look at me. Maybe they thought I could fucking hypnotise them or something. This is how all humans should behave in front of my glory. I developed a sense of pride in this whole situation and sat smiling at the posit, who was sniffing around the two of them. He's funny. He pretended to cock his leg on one of the soldiers, mimicking taking a piss. I let out a small laugh at this antics. That must have been a little disconcerting for the sweaty man, but he was just doing this to reassure me.